Hello everyone and welcome back. This week's episode we're going to see if we got all the mechanics figured out on the Cletrac. I've got a 318 John Deere that I picked up recently, so I'm going to do a little work with that. And unfortunately there's not going to be any footage this week of painting the panels for that pull tractor, but there'll be some of that next week. There's some footage that I left out of this week's episode because the footage just wasn't good enough. I'm used to being behind the camera and filming my students, so some of the stuff shows up blurry and I don't realize that until I'm in the editing stage. So there was some footage that I would like to have shared, but it just wasn't good enough. What I'd like to do or add to this is any of my students, you guys are still working on the job possibly or doing some things at home, send me some videos, send me some pictures of what you guys are doing. I'd like to incorporate that into our shows for the next few weeks. So if you've got anything like that going on, we'd love to see it and I'd like to share it. Thanks for tuning in. So this is the carburetor that I took off of the machine that I need to go through. And this is the original carburetor that goes on it. So I need to, I'm going to go through both of them actually and then determine which one of these I want to put back onto the tractor. So I decided to do the Schrebler carburetor that was on it. That way I don't have to worry about changing the fuel line. But tearing into this thing before I even get it apart, I already see signs of sealer there in RTV, and there's some around the edge here, which if anybody knows me, knows I'm not a fan of that. So that's all we're going to have to get cleaned up and get a good gasket for it or make one. So it's right, yeah, see there's more sealer there. That drives me absolutely insane when people do that. It's not what sealer's for. It's not to be used with a gasket. It's supposed to be used in the place of one. But, oh, mosquito. So anyway, I'm going to try to knock this thing apart here. We'll get this lifted up with the gasket that's already there. Let's see here with our float. Let's see if I can pull that around this side. Trying to keep my hands out of your way. We're going to we should be able to reuse that gasket if we get it cleaned up enough. So there's our floats. We'll get back to those in just a little bit. Let me see if we can get this gasket off the rest of the way without doing any major damage to it. And see, what's really frustrating is the gasket looks relatively new, but yet they still put sealer on it. Makes no sense. So with the Venturi out of the way and we get the gasket off, looks like we can reuse that. But see the sealer here? That's just crazy. Definitely plenty of gas in it. You can see our fuel valve or the needle down inside of there. I know you guys can't see it yet, but I'm gonna wait to dump this gas out first, and then we'll see how everything is adjusted and where the initial adjustments are. Then we can determine what we need to do. So we got our main jet, we got our pilot jet, and we'll see if it's some dirt right there. We'll see how clean this thing actually is and if we can get it running a little bit better. So after dumping the gas, let me try to point this out to you. See that sealer way back in the back, inside that bowl there? That's just residual. Somebody rubbed their finger through it or just had too much in it or whatever. But watch this. I can actually take and pull it out. I don't know if you can see it on my finger. Those little pieces of sealer. The gas pulls those things off. And that could have easily gotten down into the carburetor somewhere and been creating some of the issues too. But we're going to clean this whole thing completely out. Either get another gasket or make sure that one's good enough that we can put it all back together. The valve here, the needle set for the main jet is so tight I can't even turn it. So who knows how much gas this thing was feeding or supposed to be feeding. So all that's going to have to come apart and be cleaned really well and get it adjusted properly. So I found a couple of interesting things here. This main jet, first of all, don't think it was seating properly. I think it was open too far because this was stuck pretty badly. I got it all freed up now. This is one of the shots that was really blurry, so I freeze framed it so I can talk about it. That hole there that you see is where the main jet needle goes into, and it was stuck really badly. I think it was stuck open so far as one of the reasons why we couldn't get it to idle down. It was just feeding too much fuel. So it's all cleaned out now. I'll be able to adjust it properly and it should run much, much better. Alright, so we're all back together. I've got our idle jet set at about 1 1/4 turns, and I got my main jet set at about 1 1/2. That's going to be a good point to start, get it fired up and do some adjusting. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the crawler now, and maybe we'll try to fire it back up. This is a John Deere 318 that I picked up recently in a deal. It runs, but not as good as it should, and it also has a starting issue. So we're going to dive into this thing and see if we can't get it running better. So one problem right away, this wire here is what powers the box for the ignition, or for the whole tractor really. First of all, butt connector, which they should be outlawed. A lot of corrosion in there. This thing pulled apart very easily. You had it wrapped in electrical tape. This kind of stuff drives me insane. A lot of people just don't understand how electricity works and about current and resistance and whatever else stuff that I try to teach my kids. And so anyway, we're going to get this thing powered up correctly and see if that makes any difference, or at least that's one problem we need to solve. I'm sure it's got another one somewhere. So I got most of the electrical taken care of on the tractor. I won't start by the key still, but it didn't before anyway, so we can jump that. But once I got it started, what I didn't show you is how it was running. The RPM was kind of going up and down. I was hunting. Pulled the choke on a little bit to enrich it and it smoothed out, so it wasn't getting enough fuel. Went ahead and took the top off the carburetor, did a little cleaning on it. It had not been adjusted. Got it adjusted properly and put it all back together. Now it runs fine. I wish I'd have filmed that. Problem is, I'm not at school, so I don't think about filming. When I have a problem, I just work on it. I just fix it. So I apologize for not showing you that, and I'm not interested in putting it back the way it was. But I will show you that it does start, runs, dials fine, and that pretty much took care of all of our problems. So the lift for my Jubilee has been acting a little sluggish, so I need to change the oil on it. The fluid check here with the dipstick, I'll show you here, it's got a lot of condensation on it. So that's going to help by getting all that drained out of there. And mostly because I don't use it very often. So anyway, we're going to change the fluid on it. And I need to do that because I got to do a little, spread some gravel tomorrow. So I want to make sure everything's working okay before I do. Alright, got the plug loose. With all that water in there, there's probably going to be a lot more volume of fluid, unfortunately. Hopefully this bucket will hold it all. You should see water coming out. Oh yeah, that's pretty nasty. There's quite a bit of water in there. Alright, so you can see a lot of condensation down in that bucket. Alright, so we can see we're working pretty well now. Had to bleed air out of it. Done that right here for the pump. While it's running, but you got to see the air bubbles coming out from around it. Shut it down. Go back, rework this. 3 points going up and down. It's got a little shake to it, so it still has a little bit more air. We'll open this up again. Frost. Alright, drop her again. Raise it again. Yeah, it's got a bit of a hop, but it is working now. This is a 1946 Oliver Cletrac. It's the first tractor. It was actually restored by a few of the students and one of my sons after school several years ago. It's a tractor that I take to the shows each year just to kind of tool around and show off, along with some of the other things that we have. It runs really well. It's a great looking tractor. It commands a lot of attention everywhere we go with it. In the back there's an Aldous Chalmers WC and a McCormick Deering 1020. These are on a long list of tractors that are waiting to get redone. But they're sitting in a barn along with some other things, and this is where I'm going to be painting those pieces for that pull tractor that I'm doing. So that's going to be, you'll see some of that next week, as I didn't get an opportunity to get started. I'm set up, but we're not started yet. But you'll get to see the prep work and some of the painting on some of those panels next week. And if you follow along, as the weeks go by, you'll see the tractor come together with all the panels that have been done. Next time on Bulldog Builds, We'll see if we can get this old gold wing running that's been sitting for a little while. We'll take this 420 apart that threw a rod last season, and I'll begin painting the panels for the pull tractor. See you next week.